Workshop, official in-house workshop. We've had wonderful guest speakers coming throughout the past weeks, and now it's on us together to work on this very interesting topic. But just to remind everyone and to thank everyone who has helped us with their love, prayers, work, dedication to put together this new beginning for us. It's a new beginning, and as we celebrate the 10 years of the Spiritus Society of Baltimore, it couldn't be more special than having our home, our own home, to work on our spirituality together. Because as you saw, the new logo, have you observed we have a new logo? We do. It's enlightening, and the slogan is enlightening lives together. We can't grow if we are not one with one another and God. And it inspired us to say that 10 years would not happen if we are not together. If we are not making efforts to spread the news and to help one another, if we are not living this message in a daily basis, counting on one another. So this is the reason why, one of the reasons why, we were inspired to bring this workshop, When Generosity Rules Out Fear. And especially, it came out of our trip to Brazil this past December, when we were visiting Divaldo Franco and his wonderful foundation, Dimension of the Way. At Dimension of the Way, we already knew it from other people, from seeing like short documentaries. Divaldo never claimed anything. He never came and said, oh, we do this and we do that. He doesn't. He's very humble. But when we were there and we saw the magnitude of the work, I was telling friends who are here today with us, visiting us, and we are also very happy for their generosity to come here and give us, a boost of love. Our friends Adriano and Eduardo from New York. They are presidents of 2 different Spiritist centers in New York. One of them is solely in the English language, and the other one is preparing to do the transition. And thank you for coming here. And we're sharing with them yesterday that 2 main things were the highlights for us, besides many other things visiting Dimension of the Way. Their generosity, not only Divaldo Franco's generosity, but the pattern he created. It's almost like a city. Can you imagine, like streets, buildings, different facilities, and of course spiritual places where they have like a publisher and a bakery and schools for children, from daycare to high school. It's unbelievable. Now they are putting together the seeds for a hospital, maternity hospital there. So it's immense. But the key was discipline with love, deep compassion, and most of all, generosity. The word they say every day is service, to serve. And that's why you look in their eyes and you see true happiness. We were stunned by observing everyone, from the person who is at the gateway to open the doors to everybody else, and the people who have very important, positions there. Everybody was giving from their heart, serving. And they were working and working, even the volunteers, from volunteers to everyone else. And then we started learning a new concept of generosity. So we meditated on it, and we put together this workshop, inspired on something that can truly rule out fear from our lives. Because we are living in fear. If we could picture in a very nice way a little cartoon about how we are living nowadays, this is how we are. Many of us, not only in the US, it's in the whole world. People are there, hidden in their shell, and this is how we feel. Some people are afraid of God, believe it or not. They think God is going to punish them. They think God is, and they start bargaining with God. You see, if you give me this, I'll do that. You see, I can go to the Spiritist Center and help. Even Spiritists, sometimes I get like confused about it. And they say, I'm going to help them, but see, can you give me that house that I'm looking for? Can you please give my daughter, my son, my mother, my father, my husband, my wife, the job that they need? And I'll help people here and there and elsewhere. Everything out of fear. Fear of not being accepted by God, by ourselves, by one another. Fear of being generous sometimes. What if I give too much of myself, and who is going to take care of me? How many people say, Vanessa, I cannot spend that much time helping other people because who is going to think about my needs? This person is afraid of giving because they think that when we give of ourselves, we lose ourselves. But if we give our hearts, we gain other hearts. It's the opposite. So how many people nowadays live in fear of people who are different from us? Not only because they speak another language. Talking about people who speak the same language that we do. And they're afraid because they think different. They think differently. They have a different religious concept, religious belief. They don't agree with the same things, and we feel that that difference is a threat. Do you have fears? Do you? You don't need to tell me, because I'm not going to judge anybody, because I also include myself in the list. How many types of fear do you have? Do you have any idea of the 3 major fears in your life? Things that you're afraid of? Let's write it down. You're not going to show it to anybody, but it's important because a workshop is to work together and it has a therapeutic purpose. So what I'm going to ask you is to pick up a pen or a pencil and write down, it's for you. We're going to keep working on it throughout the workshop. Bring it to your consciousness. What are possibly the 3 top fears in your life? Can be anything from being afraid of snakes to fear of not being accepted, or something else, okay? So Becky is going to help me out, and I'll bring some more cards. Think about it as they distribute, and you write it down. You can pass it around, please. Pass it around. And I'll begin from this end. And you can go this way. Alright. There you go. There you go. More. There you go. Got it? Got it? Everybody? Yeah. Thank you. There is a bookstore. It's a very loving and warm place. And sometimes, just because we can't see it, we think it's something else. And many of us, psychology says, we project what we have inside. Our world is what we think the world is, not necessarily what the world really is. For example, it all depends in the light of our knowledge or in the shadow of our ignorance. For example, this podium, if I ask you, what color is it? What color is it, the podium? White. Okay. If I give you a glass that has green lenses, what color is that going to be then for you? Green. And then I ask, what color is it? Green or white? And if I shut down the light, turn it up, then I ask, what color is it? And you say, it doesn't exist. Because without light, you can't see it. And then the question is, does it exist or doesn't it? When it's too philosophical, no, it's true. It's true. Does it exist or not? It depends. If I can see it, and the way I see it is what exists. And that's why we talk to different people, and they feel differently about things, about themselves. Some people, we tell them, you're a wonderful person. They say, don't say that to me. And they feel like you're saying something really bad because they don't see themselves as a good person. And you say, why not? People can see your potential. How can't you see it? Why? Because they have things in their minds. They project it onto their image and onto others. So not necessarily what we're seeing is what really exists. It's what exists inside our minds. This doesn't mean we're crazy. No. And that's going to be like that for eternity. This is the beauty of the Creator's creation. Because the Creator allows us to experience what we can experience and not what we are supposed to experience. And this is why we are here now, to broaden our view, sometimes to change the lenses that are making us tired, afraid, that are making us hide. Raul Teixeira was saying in his talk, people now, this is a parenthesis, if you want to contribute in our pledge campaign, for example, you're going to receive the latest CD, Raul Teixeira CD. It's an audiobook. It's a wonderful talk that he gave. It's the voiceover was done by Greg Stewart, the beautiful voice that we have helping us. And there he says something very interesting, among other things. We were born to socialize. We're born to be together with people. And he says, if one day it occurs to you to isolate yourself because either you are afraid of people or you think that contact, getting in touch with people is not going to be beneficial to you, then you better find help because it's not normal. Normal in the sense of our nature, our true spiritual nature. That's what the CD is all about, unfolding our spiritual nature. We are supposed to sought after people, to be around people, to enjoy this being together with other people. The day we begin isolating ourselves from people, then something is wrong. That's why wars happen. Because people hide themselves behind walls and they think the other one is the enemy, whereas we are projecting the enemy within. So where is this fear? Is it somewhere else? Is it inside of us? Well, the brain processes fears. And just so we give an overview, because some people say, but Vanessa, I think it's very biological. Oh yes, it is. Our brain, if you go now to the Maryland Science Center, they have this exhibit about the whole body. We truly recommend because we need to appreciate, praise God by admiring God's work. And that's why we need to go to this exhibit that people put together. They were geniuses, putting together this exhibit that is now very close to us at the Neuroscience Center at the Inner Harbor, and see how our body is constituted and understand how it works. And they say, among other things, you're going to see things about our 3-pound gem, the brain. So we have abundant life here, process everything that we have about our emotions, about life. And of course, neuroscientists that work on trying to understand fear and the mechanisms behind it, like Joseph Ledoux, for example, from New York, they understand that one of the key areas, not only, but one of the key areas for processing basic fears, very instinctive fears, is this tiny area in the brain that is almost like the size of an olive, named amygdala. And it's pretty much located in this area here. Of course, it doesn't process it alone. It's going to give us the emotional tone of fear. And the prefrontal cortex, which is pretty much in this area, is going to process at higher levels, and mostly how we are going to approach or decide, take action in regard of that fear at more higher levels of processing, not only the instinctive one. It involves some reasoning. It varies from person to person, but there is a biology out there that is going to be activated when we are facing threatening stimulus. That's how science, psychology, psychiatry understands fear. At the behavioral level, it all depends on a stimulus. So when you wrote about your fears, we ask, first question, are the stimuli of each fear real? Is there real stimulus to really trigger that kind of fear that you wrote down? Or is it something that we think is real, or that we are projecting? What am I saying? For example, if I say I'm afraid of snakes, well, if a snake is in front of you, then it's a physical, clear stimulus. But then being afraid of being robbed, it's something hypothetical. It's not as real because it's not out there. So being afraid of monsters in the closet, like children, many children have that type of fear. Is that real? Where is that type of fear? Being afraid of being accepted. It's real at emotional, psychological level, but where did that begin? Did it begin in this childhood, in previous lives? And that's what we need to try to find out. Because the brain in this life has put together a pattern of activity in the neuroscience of fear, the neurobiology of fear, to process that pathway every time that stimulus comes up. So once we find out the stimulus, we can more easily target it and release that fear. And that's why we're here today, to help you, give you new tools so you can do this self-discovery and empower yourself to go to the next level. So that's why we think generosity can be the antidote to fear. Because if we go to the root meaning of the word generosity, the etymology of the word says that it comes from the Latin word generositate, and basically, this is what it says, that it means, the root meaning is nobility of thought or behavior, which means something beyond the earthbound matters. It's going above and beyond our expectations. It's about being noble. So you get out of your fear. Because fear is very instinctive. It's very primitive. all species, animal species, have fear as one of their preservation instincts, which is good, because you want to lock your door so people are not going to break in. That type of, it's a way to be cautious. But what about other fears that block us from living and leading our lives to its fullness? And this is why we're here now. So generosity can be the antidote, because in generosity, in reaching out to other people, in going beyond our fears, we can overcome these obstacles, the obstacles that you have inside. There are scientists such as Dr. Ariel Knaff and his collaborators. In 2007, in the Journal of Genes, Brain, Behavior, they published the first work that points out that we have the seed of generosity in our genes. And this didn't start only in human beings. They identified this impulse of altruism, altruistic relationship, the willingness to reach out, even in animals. Of course, we translate it into the human word generosity. But this is what they identified, that there is a gene that was named AVPR1A, and the longer promoter of this gene basically was responsible, the people, the subjects, they had the longer promoters of this gene, they had more production of this substance, arginine vasopressin, which was found to be the key to social bonding. Now imagine the implications of this, which means that when people say, I'm not capable of reaching out and getting out of myself and thinking of others first, well, actually, you have it, because if animals have the seed of that altruistic behavior, and it's in the genes, evolutionarily speaking, we must have them as well. So we have a component that is inside the antidote to selfishness. If selfishness can be rooted into the preservation instinct, when we are excessively worried about preserving ourselves, then we become proud and selfish. Then, at the same time, God in His wisdom, His or her wisdom, or none of it on its wisdom, because it's not a woman or a man, then God created us also with the seed of this altruistic behavior, this generosity that surpasses our expectations. We all have it, right here now. And if you think you're selfish, it's time to discover your generosity gene. Because rediscover and boost it, it's there. It is there. And so much so that they concluded that this gene was so important evolutionarily speaking that social bonding was very important for people to preserve species. We wouldn't be here if it weren't for this unity with people, this community work, this social bonding. And in that regard, from these species this type of rat that they studied and identified that gene, to human beings, we all have the gene. The gene that releases this substance, arginine vasopressin, that is very important in higher levels to make us bind socially. And in that sense, they conclude it made an evolutionary sense. We need that gene in order to continue and perpetuate our species. So that's why Jesus said very wisely, He said, we need to make friends. It's very important. We progress faster if we have friends. That's why the Spiritual Society of Baltimore agreed 100% that this is our slogan, aligning lives together. How many people think that to be spiritual is to be isolated in a monastery, somewhere else. They're meditating. Who cares about people who are suffering? Who cares? No, no, no. True spirituality is about working on it together. And the Spiritual Society of Baltimore has this mission to accomplish, which is to boost this gene, to make it work at higher and higher levels, because true service comes from generosity, and we all have it. We all have it inside of us. And with that, there is no fear anymore. And we're going to see how. Because as Daniel Goleman says in his book, Social Intelligence, when we break through our fears, when we overcome them, only generosity can keep us moving forward. And he describes in the first pages when the general of some of the American troops were getting into Iraq. And this was a true case. They were getting in, and the Iraqi people of that village, they didn't speak the same language. So imagine the confusion it can cause. And then they were there, they couldn't speak the same language, and the Iraqi people had their guns pointed to the American troop. And Daniel Goleman describes the wisdom of the leader of that troop to put the guns down. Imagine the insight. It could be very risky. But he overcame his fear when he reached out to the very human part of every human being, irrespective of their nationality. And he said to the troop, put your guns down. And he made a gesture that he learned that could conquer the trust of those Iraqi people, and to make them understand without words, because they couldn't explain it in words, that it was okay. They were not there to threaten them. And Daniel Goleman, from his psychological point of view, he says, it took this man a high level of social intelligence to really deal with that situation in a peaceful way, if we can say this, in a peaceful way inside the war, but in a peaceful way, and taking a very smart and wise solution for all, both sides. But how is our social intelligence doing? Are we being socially intelligent? Because we go to school, and that not necessarily trains us to be emotionally and socially wise. Not necessarily. Because boosting competition all the time not necessarily is triggering a lot of social intelligence. Because we need collaboration to go farther, to move forward and go places higher than simply getting a career, a job, and family and children, and etc. We need much more than that. And in this sense, we'll understand that generosity, altruistic behaviors are certainly in the realm of becoming socially intelligent. So much that we would say Jesus was the model of social intelligence. Christ, when we analyze him, he was not only intellectually wise, emotionally self-controlled, centered, mindful all the time. He was so mindful that in every and each place he was visiting, he was 100% there, taking care of everyone who was around, in the extent that he could take care of thousands of people at the same time, and everybody feeling that they were taken care individually. It's a wisdom that we're still working, so one day we can get to that level. But he was so smart, socially speaking, that when he told us about the parable of the Good Samaritan, Christ was not judgmental, because he was being the instrument of divine message. He was not telling us the Good Samaritan is simply a good man, so follow his example. No, 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 that's too shallow. He wanted to tell us that that man the Good Samaritan, was socially intelligent, that it was wise, even for his own preservation, to take care of someone else who was in need. 2,000 years ago. He already knew the reasons why, but now neuroscience, the past year, the end of last year, it taught us why Christ advised us to behave as a good Samaritan. He said, you should follow the same, because this is godlike. This is in God's will for everyone. Why? Because neuroscience now is showing us that when we see someone suffering, we suffer as well. Because the brain has what we call mirror neurons. Cells that are prepared to respond and feel, if I could say in these words, the same as everyone else who is around us. That's the power of one. The power of your decisions onto everybody's lives around you. And you think people are not noticing you, but you are impacting on people's lives. Even if you don't want to, it happens. So they test, among other experiments, it's a very interesting experiment. They put a couples and they scanned their brains during an experiment that was quite simple. They were pinching, for example, there was the husband, and they were doing imaging of the brain while he was being pinched on the hand, for example, and saying, now we're going to give you a painful stimulation, but not too painful. Something reasonable that, ethically speaking, is fine, of course. And then he was prepared. His brain was scanned to see which areas of the brain were being activated. What was the pattern of activation? And then soon after, they said, now your husband or your wife, your partner, now your partner, and they didn't see it, but they got to know that the partner was receiving the same kind of treatment. And then they scanned the brain. And they observed that the activity pattern of the brain is precisely the same. And they started concluding, and this is one of the studies of many that was done last year in this direction, to show us that when people suffer, and if we know what it is, we feel the same. That's why when we see homeless people, we don't like to see them. People feel like it bothers them. They say, I can't see these things. Why? Because we start feeling what they feel. It's cold, we're driving, a homeless is there, they have their sign, and we ask, can't believe this person looks so healthy, is in need. But it bothers us because we start feeling homeless. And now neuroscience is just trying to understand that our brains are being activated in that realm. So when Jesus told us, look, this is wise, it's for our own benefit, that we don't let people suffer without noticing and helping them out and reaching out to those people. Because we suffer. So if we are in our realm of fears, we're blocking ourselves from experiencing fullness of life. Because if the world is suffering, we're suffering. If there's one person crying and we know of it, we will feel it. And not talking about vibrations, which is another level of discussion. We're talking about physical realm only. So this study was published in 2003 in the European Journal of Neuroscience, talking about the existence of mirror neurons in our brains, and they began studying in monkeys. And as you can see here, the monkey was in front of the experimenter, they were facing one another, and the experimenter was doing certain gestures, and the monkey was repeating it, as you can see. They're very smart. There's little difference between us and them. I don't know if it's good or bad to conclude that. But they show that basically the experimenters and the monkey, they are very tuned with. And what is interesting is what happens after that experience. So the monkey is in his cell, and he can see the experimenter. The experimenter is there doing gestures face to face with the monkey. The monkey is imitating everything. But then the experiment turns around and starts doing something here. The monkey observes, and later they did a certain study. They could see that it was a very fine, elegant study, because it showed that some neurons, although the monkey was not doing the same behavior as the experimenter, the same area of the brain that was activated before when they were imitating was activated at the time that he was just seeing the experimenter doing a certain type of gesture or behavior. And this is just a part of the study. Of course, I cannot present the whole paper, but it's a very interesting paper. I have the reference here, and many others that came after that to show and prove to us that we have very specific neurons in the brain that are set up to help us engage into this social bonding by imitating one another, by understanding and feeling what others feel. So it's easier than we imagine. We have the roots in our physical body. When people say, I can't learn this language, I can't learn to be like this person, well, you are blocking a natural system inside of you. Because we are born to learn. We're born to repeat and be influenced by one another. It's inside of us. And if it's not happening, we are probably blocking that part of us. Maybe because of previous lives' experiences. So the question is, are these fears that you wrote down, that we have inside, a consequence of this blockade? Where that may come from? Is it from childhood, from trauma in this life, or previous lives? Think about it. Revisit it. Because we need to get rid of it. We need to change, transform that scenario in such a way that now we understand why the enlightened spirits wisely said that there is no salvation without charity. What does that mean? Salvation, we don't like that word because it means like, oh my gosh, we are lost, and if we don't do a certain thing, we're going to be lost. And that's not what they meant. They meant that we only find our true selves and our happiness. Who doesn't want it? If we reach out. The day we get out of our shell and think about people more than we think about ourselves, then there is no day we're going to cry anymore for many hours. Maybe for a couple minutes. Because of course we are human beings. But we're going to feel less our limitations. Because then we are setting up ourselves to overcome our obstacles as we help others. In many ways. In many ways. And this is the only way to overcome fear. Is to reset the pattern that we have inside of us in regard to our inner nature. So think about now. If you want, you can turn to a friend and talk to your friend. If not, you can do on your own. Think about now how you think you can overcome those 3 major fears in your life by using this very inner key that you have, that we all have, which is the gene of generosity, of altruistic behavior. Try to bridge them both and write down. If you want, you can discuss with your friends next to you. If not, you can do it on your own. I'll give you a couple minutes. 3 minutes. Okay? Think about it. Then it's going to put some music, background music, to way of a fear through generosity, through altruistic behavior. Anyone would like to share? Okay, sure. If you don't mind just saying in the microphone, please.
Oh.
Thank you. Let me turn on the light here.
Okay, well, I guess to apply the theory of generosity, if I'm hunting for a job and an income and to do my life's work, then the best way for me to be generous would be to help someone else. And I think of a young woman in my life, and I am kind of helping her find her best way to make an income. So is that what you mean?
Yes. Anything that you think it is, yes, it's in this line. Yeah.
Okay.
There's no right or wrong. There's no right or wrong. Thanks God it doesn't. At any level, anything that you understand about it, it's mostly about forgetting to think about, not that we're going to forget about our needs, but needs, we're always going to have them. And I'll tell you what we need to get rid. Let's see this beautiful plant here. There is, you see, it's beautiful, isn't it? I think it is. It's a peace lily, something like it. So, let's see. There is a story. The monk. There is the master of them. And the one that was the guardian of the door, which was a very important position in that temple, the monastery. The Buddhist monks at the monastery, they lost the guardian of the monastery because he died, and other people wanted to fill in the position. So there was like a test. So the master of all of them, he said, okay, I'll tell you who is going to do it. So then he presented them a vase, a beautiful vase. In this case, it's like a plant in a vase. And then he said, I want you to get rid of it, of this problem. He said, I want you to eliminate this problem. This is a problem. I want you to eliminate it. What would you do if you wanted the position? Of course. Many people are like, they didn't know. And then came a guy. Of course, it's like an Eastern story, so they had like a sword. Some reason they had a sword. And then he came, it was a vase on a table, and he just broke it. And the other one's like, oh my gosh, those were beautiful flowers in a beautiful vase. But then the master said, this is going to be the guardian of the monastery. Why? Because when we have a problem, you have to eliminate it, no matter if it's convenient for you. Sometimes we are hidden behind fears. But it's convenient to be there. How many people I know, they have a partner or a job, they hate everybody, but they don't want to eliminate the problem, which is to move to the next step. They keep it because it serves a purpose. Sometimes it's pretty, right? It's convenient. And we don't eliminate the problem. No wonder there is no therapy, no passes, nothing's going to help us to solve the problem. Because the problem is going to be solved when we want to take the courage to get out of our fear and truly eliminate it from our path. Not saying we're going to eliminate people. That's not the meaning. It means to find a solution to break down the problem into understandable pieces and give solution to each one of them. Sometimes things are pretty in our lives. For example, addicted people, okay? They tell me, Vanessa, it's too hard to overcome it. And I say, why? Because my best friends are addicted. I don't want to lose them. But you get into addiction mostly because of the social bonding. Mostly, that's what takes us into addiction. something we miss, socially speaking, we find with other people, they have the same need. Very likely, psychology explains it to us. But then they say, I don't want to lose my friends. Many people, they become a new spiritual life and they say, Vanessa, my family doesn't understand me. I don't want to, get into this kind of problem. But then, there you go, you have a problem. It's up to you to eliminate it. Even if it's beautiful, if it's convenient for you, you need to choose. Or, it's not a problem anymore. If I think it's a problem, no matter how beautiful it is, no matter how convenient it is, I need to eliminate it. And many people, they hide themselves behind fears. And this is why we understand that there is no other way but to reach out and work on the math of generosity. There was a man in Brazil that was very wise. He created a system of generosity in Brazil that is now named Lar Fabiano de Cristo. It's named after a priest that was very charitable in Rio de Janeiro. And they help out, they began these organizations everywhere in Brazil. And he was so wise, this man, that he put together a math that if we follow, we're never going to go wrong. There is no fear of reaching out, even overcoming our fears of forgiving ourselves and other people. So this is the math. It's simple. I know math, some people are like, oh, Vanessa, it's Sunday morning. Come on. You don't want to talk about mathematics now. But this is an easy math. It's 1 plus 2 equal x, so we're not going to multiply or divide or anything. So he says, let's consider a minus when we have an unhealthy action, a plus when we have a healthy action, and 0 when no action is taken at all, when we are in standby. All right? And then he says, let's say someone did something that was unhealthy to you. We say a bad action, something that people, they hurt us, let's say, or hurt the ones whom we love, the country we love, etc. And let's say that in our turn, okay, I'll put everything because some reason it's not, thank you for coming now. Okay, unhealthy action of the computer. And I said thank you, which was a healthy way of not breaking the computer. But let's say I did I took an unhealthy measure, or I acted like in an unhealthy way. So -1 plus -1 equal to -2, which is I doubled the damage. Someone curses, and then you do the same saying, how damn you, and then you just double the damage. And then let's say people do something wrong and we say, who cares? I don't think there is neutral position, no action, nothing. I don't think it exists because we have thoughts, right? But let's say in his realm, we don't do anything. Still, we're not helping. Because the unhealthy result is there, -1. We did nothing to counterbalance. And then he comes up with this wonderful insight. Let's say something does something unhealthy, -1, plus a healthy action that I took to counterbalance that, +1, equals to no problem at all. And imagine if we do the double, and then we continue on our own. Imagine if not only one good action, but we walk the extra mile, and not only we do one action to counterbalance, but we do 2. And then we not only cancel the damage of that unhealthy action, but we bring enlightenment to that relationship. Because then we are going to be equal to healthy result. Which means that when someone comes to me and says, Vanessa, someone was gossiping about you. I know it hurts. Sometimes we want to take the phone or talk to the person, say, da 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 da. But then we say, you know, I was talking to a very good friend yesterday and he said, you know what I do now? I get out of my madness of being hurt. I go there, I hug that person, and I kiss that person in the forehead. And they said, wow, that's a healthy action. I'm going to learn it. And imagine if besides giving the kiss in the forehead, you go there and do what happened in Brazil with a very important medium in Brazil. Her name was Maria Modesto. And Maria, she was a wonderful healing medium, all physical types of effects through her mediumship. She was very charitable, very kind. But her neighbor envied her. She didn't like Maria because she was too much, you know. Everyone in the city was small, loved Maria. It's like a soap opera. It feels like a soap opera when we tell the story, but it's a true story. And there Maria is there. She didn't know her neighbor, didn't like her, and was jealous about her success in her spirituality and reaching out to many people who were in need. That on the day of her birthday, the city was celebrating Maria's birthday. The neighbor sent her a beautiful, you know, vase. Beautiful. It was all wrapped in beautiful paper, gift paper. Maria received it, looked at the paper. Oh, what a pretty wrapping. And oh, beautiful vase. But then a smell came from the inside of the vase. When she saw it, human feces. And the card said, this is what you deserve. Unhealthy action. Maria, where was she in this realm? She was beyond this third one. She not only took one healthy action, but two. She took the human feces. She had some beautiful, she had roses that she planted in her house, in the garden. So she took it to, you know, give some new life to the flowers. And in the neighbor's birthday, she picked some of those flowers, put in a beautiful vase, and sent it to her, saying, thank you, because that served to give new life to these roses that now I give to you. This is what you deserve. She went beyond just one healthy action of giving a gift, but she gave a gift that would bring peace. Not only would annul the unhealthy action, but would make peace in that relationship. It would bring peace to that relationship. Can we do it? If Maria made it, the genes, we have it. We just need to train it to boost the house of our biology to sustain this new, powerful, spiritual force we have inside of us and go beyond expectations, even ours. Isn't that fascinating? So, this is the reason why Maria was inspired to do that, because her guide and model was Christ. We're not saying the man Christ, the Jesus. We're talking about the awareness he brought to us. We're not here to preach about Christ and to praise Christ, but to understand the meaning of being one with God in our divine seed that we all have, which is very generous. And to wrap up, we conclude. The only way to get rid of fears is to find the abundance that we have inside and around us, because the universe God gave us is very wealthy in all dimensions, at all levels. The people in our history, in humankind, who were closest to understanding the abundance of God and the divine providence, those people were our models. Gandhi, he was not a wealthy man. He was enslaved by the people who were colonizing his country. He didn't care about his limitations. He surpassed them, he overcame them, and reached out thinking about many lives who were threatened in their peace, in their empowerment, because of the British at the time. And also, Mother Teresa. The church at the time didn't understand her. The church itself didn't understand the extension of her generosity. Did she care? No. If she stopped because the church didn't care, she wouldn't have given us the teachings, the life she gave to so many people in the area where she was working, and many, many other people. So how about us? Have you identified the abundant resources you have been given? Think about the gem you have in your brain. Science has just proved the last month that each neuron of our brain is essential to our behaviors. Neuroscience until last year thought that for each behavior we needed a group of neurons, a large amount of cells to perform a behavior. And they were surprised. Karen Svoboda, one of the leaders in neuroscience, she just found out in her group in a very elegant study that actually each neuron of our brain is very important to command a behavior. Not only a group, but individual. Few groups of neurons are key to the performance of certain behaviors. Which means that we also, each one of us, have an indispensable task to fulfill. Indispensable. It's not only Gandhi, it's not only the President of the United States. We are all equally indispensable. And the key is to recognize the abundant resources we have at hand. When we recognize the abundance of divine providence, there is no fear anymore. Why being afraid of things? Why? When the two old men were walking that path in the desert, and they were old and sick, Jesus said, old and sick. They had to cross a desert in the coldness of night, having few resources, materially speaking. They didn't have enough food. They didn't have enough water. They were sick, old, financially speaking. They didn't have enough, but sufficient to get to the next, pension, the next place and stay overnight. And then when they walked, they saw this child. The child was almost dead. And one of the men was like many of us. Oh, this child is going to die. I'm not going to bother wasting my few resources helping this child, because if I do, I'm going to die. Fear of reaching out, because I may lose something if I reach out. I'm wasting my time, the time that I have to clean my house to help clean someone else's house, to help a friend, to help another family, to help an organization. And I feel like, oh, if I don't do this, if I do that, I'm going to miss my opportunity of doing something for myself. That man was like this. He said, forget about it. The other one was more socially intelligent, generous. He was at another level in his APVR1, A, the gene. He was already having like a longer promoter if we talk about science nowadays. And then he said, no, we're going to bring this child with us. He said, what? You crazy? The other said, I'm old and sick, you're old and sick, we don't have resources. If we take this child, we don't have enough energy to walk our path and get where we want. He said, okay, if you don't want it, go ahead. I'll go slower, but I'll take this child with me because I'm going to find a doctor there and the doctor's going to help this child. The other one, who didn't care, just went his path. He was probably faster than the other one who wanted to help. So the old guy who stayed and helped, he was slower, but was always with the child on his arms, holding the child. And when it was cold, they were together, very close together to make sure, because they didn't have enough resources to really bring them warmth. He made it to the little hotel. When he got there, he was happy and excited to see that the child was still living and breathing, still sick, but there was life. And they asked for a physician. The physician was going to come and help. So his mission was fulfilled. It wasn't much. Nobody was asking him to take the child home and take care of the child forever. It was just that, short distance in that many years of life. And then he asked, what about my friend? He said, is my friend who is named X here? I want to see him and say, we made it. And the guy said, oh, this guy? He didn't make it. He died because it was too cold. And Jesus said, when he was helping the child, they exchanged, the warmth of the bodies. And it not only helped the life of the child, but his life. So he survived because he was reaching out. The fear of the other one of not surviving, if he reached out, he was wrong. If he knew better, if he had the insight. Of course, the other one couldn't foresee it, but the impulse of generosity made him gain something that otherwise he would never have. And this is how now we ask you in this prayer moment that we're going to have and that passes. Don't think about your fears anymore. Let's meditate on the list of abundance that we are immersed. The many neurons and cells in your whole body that are serving you without asking for a reward, but food, of course. Pretty soon we're going to offer food. But the resources you have at hand right now, the family members, the friends, don't take for granted. When we recognize divine providence in our lives, even the job that sometimes is not the best, but at least you have it. The colleagues, those so many things. Make a list as you pray and praise God for this. Because when we do, we tune to higher frequency minds. The ones that recognize the abundance of the universe all the time. And in that connection, problems shall pass faster, easier, and we'll feel much less. Think about it. We're going to ask our practitioners pretty soon to come here. If you have questions, I have like 2 minutes to answer any questions. Maybe your question is someone else's question. I have a microphone if anyone has a question and would like to ask. Yeah? You can. Yes, someone wants to ask a question. You want it, Monica? No? No? So let's meditate. If you have... Calvin, sure, why not? We have a couple minutes to wrap it up.
It's not a question, but to me, the greatest of all, overcoming the greatest of all fear is the fear of death. To me, that's the bottom line.
Fear of death.
Then you have no fear of anything. Of course, you never know what's going to happen tomorrow what. But overcoming the fear of death is that's real godsend.
Very good point. And there is a wonderful book about it, the Heaven and Hell book by Kardec. And he did about the need of death. And when we work at this other level, feeling the abundance of life in divine providence, there is no fear anymore of death. Why? God created us, we didn't ask it. Did you ask it? You didn't exist, so you didn't ask. We didn't ask to exist. Maybe we asked to come here this lifetime. But we already existed before this lifetime. So why being afraid of existing? Because death is nothing else but just going back home. Permanently. For that time being, of course. Because every night we go home. Because we're spirits. We go home in the sense that we are more on the spiritual realm than here. So Calvin is right. It's one of the fears that is very related to this preservation. But when we work at this other level, feeling God's providence, imagine God as this loving, caring mother, father, parent, taking care of us. It's like a baby. The baby is not worried about if the parents are taking care of him or not. He just cries, say, I want food, I want love, I want hug, when he's crying. We can do the same to God, saying, God, can you please hug me a little more? And take care of me. Because now I'm afraid. And I know I don't need to be afraid. But then when we call in this divine hug, this divine protection, the fears disappear. Because we didn't ask to exist. We were given. Our life is a given. Is a gift. So fears, why fears? We need to work around them. If you ask, but Vanessa, aren't you afraid? Oh yeah, I have fears. That's why we're here. I'm trying to work on them. But when we train ourselves to be one with God, then no fear anymore. Let's do it now as we pray and receive the passes. The passes we are giving now are mostly spiritual, but our practitioners are going to come. So what you have to do, stay there. Open your heart. We're going to conduct a prayer. Our past givers are going to stay at the end of each row. They are going to extend their hands. And they're going to serve as instruments of the good spirits. And the good spirits will come to each one of us and take care and give us the treatment that we need. At the end, we give the blessed water. All right? If you don't want it, you can stay with your eyes open. But nobody's going to touch you. Nobody's going to do anything. But just embrace the abundance of life at this moment. Make a list of everything that you have, that God has granted you. And think about how you are enjoying this abundance. It's beyond material abundance, okay? Spiritual, emotional, social. So let us close our eyes.